I'm on Creative Fabrica, which is one of my favorite sites for getting freebies. There's paid stuff on there, but I'm on the freebie section. So I'm looking through freebies and I find, oh, there's this horse design. And when I click on it, that brings me to free. Commercial usage allowed. Oh ho ho. So I'm going to upload this onto a t-shirt. So I upload it onto Redbubble or Etsy or TeePublic, and all of a sudden I get a copyright strike and I'm confused and my account gets banned. I'm on Redbubble right now. I type in Mona Lisa and I get this back. Look at this. It's the same. It's the exact same. This is a public domain image. So could this person get a copyright strike? Could this person get a copyright strike? The answer is yes, they could. I'm going to break this down in this video and give you 3 tips on how you can avoid getting a copyright strike, even if you're using a design that has commercial license or you're using a public domain image. Let's go. Hey, what's going on, everyone? I'm scrolling through one of my old videos here. Yes, how narcissistic is this? I'm actually watching my own videos on YouTube. But the reason I do is because I look through comments, and there was a comment here that came through the other day, and I wanted to address it. So this person here wrote, "I love your videos, they're very helpful. I think you are misguiding regarding Unsplash and NASA." And so when I see stuff like this, you know, I'm happy to take feedback, and I appreciated it, and I said as much. I replied back and said, thank you so much. But I did want to address this sort of thing because this comes up from time to time, and what this is telling me is that there is some confusion from people in general about the usage of designs that are public domain or that are commercially. So I want to point out this person is not confused. They're 100% correct on what they're saying. So I did say as much, but I wanted to jump in and give you an example of how this works. Okay, so I've set up sort of a fake example here with a fake person. And I don't mean the person's fake, obviously it's a real person, but I'm making up an example using a stock photo here. So this is our, let's call her Nancy, and she's a Redbubble artist. So she goes onto a website and she purchases a design, this spiral design, and it says on the website, commercial use. Doesn't matter where she got it. Could have been any one of a number of websites that says free for commercial use, or it could be a public domain image. It's the same thing for the purposes of this example. What she then does is she uploads that design as is, exactly the same. She doesn't make any modifications to it, onto a t-shirt. And let's say, for example, she's using Etsy, okay, or Redbubble or TeePublic, but she's using a site that's not her own website. She's using basically a print-on-demand site. So I'm using Redbubble here as an example, but it could be TeePublic, it could be merch, it could be Etsy. It doesn't matter, okay? But we're using Redbubble just because that's one of the biggest in the world. So she's got this design and she's uploaded it onto Redbubble. She thinks everything's fine because it said it was free for commercial use. What happens is another shop, another guy's got the exact same design on a t-shirt, and he sees it. He sees that now Nancy's uploaded this design. So maybe the keyword is spiral or mind bender or optical illusion or whatever it is, okay? Cone, I don't know. And so the idea is that this guy's uploaded it maybe a month earlier, maybe a year earlier, maybe a minute earlier. It doesn't really matter. So this guy over here on the right, he's got this store already open and he's already got the exact same design up on his website, up on his shop on Redbubble or on his shop on TeePublic or his shop on merch. So what happens is this person now can launch a copyright strike to Etsy, the head office, and say, hey, Nancy has uploaded the exact same design as me. Even though it's public domain or even though it's, commercial use, Redbubble doesn't really care. TeePublic doesn't really care. So what'll happen now is poor Nancy gets a strike and she's confused because she's going, well, I thought this was free for commercial use. It is free for commercial use, but Redbubble has a policy where they don't allow the same design. Now, Redbubble doesn't necessarily go around just pulling random designs, although it feels that way. And there is a robot that goes through and scans stuff. But this person is legally allowed, the person on the right is legally allowed to launch a copyright strike against Redbubble. So if you upload the design first onto Redbubble, in theory, you can launch copyright strikes against anybody else, because Redbubble doesn't want to have 85 shops all selling the exact same things. So they're going to say, look, we don't really care what the rules are. This person uploaded it first, and if Nancy can't prove that she's the owner of the design, then she's getting the design taken down. I know this is a basic example, so I mean, let's not get into the weeds too much about the certain websites and, oh, I heard this happen, that happened. But this is generally speaking what happens when you get a strike on a Redbubble or a TeePublic and you're using what you think is a totally fine image. Let's go back now. Let's wind the clock back and let's do the exact same example, but slightly different. So we've got Nancy, our fake person here. She buys the design, or she gets the design off of a website that says commercial use, and it could be public domain, doesn't matter. She makes the exact same shirt, but this time she uses her own website. So she creates a website, and I just made this up. I don't know if this is a real website or not, but I just call it veronicastshirts.com, okay? So she creates a store, and now Nancy's the owner of veronicastshirts.com. That's her brand. And she's got this t-shirt now selling on that website. You can go to veronicastshirts.com and you can buy this thing. Again, it's a made-up example. Please don't go to that website. I'm just making that up as an example. But the idea here is that she's selling this t-shirt on that website. Now, someone else has got this exact same design that they also purchased the commercial license for, and maybe they're selling it on Redbubble, maybe they're selling it on Merch, maybe they're selling it on Etsy. What happens now? So if the person on the right goes, Nancy stole my design. Well, no, she didn't actually, because she's not selling it on Redbubble. She's not selling it on Merch, and she's not selling it on Etsy. She's selling it on her own website, and she has a license to do that. She's selling it through a different channel. She's not selling it through the same channel. So now, if this guy on the right, if he wants to lodge a complaint, who does he complain to? Does he complain to Redbubble? Redbubble doesn't care that this person's selling her shirt on veronicastshirts.com. This person can't complain to Merch. This person can't complain to Etsy. This person can only complain to this person because she owns her own website. This is the advantage to owning your own website, to having your own domain name and uploading your own designs. Maybe she's using Printful, for example, or Printify, or This New, whatever the printing service is. Maybe she's got a t-shirt printer in her garage and she's spending every Saturday and Sunday in a sweatshop cranking out t-shirts in her neighborhood. It doesn't matter. She's making her own shirts somehow with some sort of provider, independent of these print-on-demand platforms. So I've got 3 tips for you. And it's not just, use your own website. Although, that's a nice tip, I think. But if you're going to sell on Redbubble, and if you're going to sell on TeePublic and Merch by Amazon and these other websites that are not your website, this is the big disconnect. Is people go, well, I have my shop on Redbubble. It's their shop on Redbubble. It's Redbubble's shop. You're playing in their field with their ball glove and their baseball bat. Here's the first tip. If you're going to get that spiral design, or if you're going to purchase a design for commercial use, I would recommend that you add something to the original design. Now, I have an example of this at the end. So if you're still wondering what does he mean by that, I'll show you in just a second here. But that's tip number 1, is add something to the original design. Number 2 is change something in the original design. What you're doing with 1 and 2 here with these tips is you're making the design unique. You're making it yours. You're stretching it, pulling it, rotating it, adding it, changing the color. You're doing something to the original base that makes the design now yours. So it's not the exact same. And I've seen this again and again on Redbubble and TeePublic where people complain, oh, this person stole my design. But they didn't. They took your design and they changed it. And Redbubble and TeePublic, for example, don't really care because it's no longer the exact same design. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that's the rules. Number 3, instead of purchasing a design, you can just make your own. Okay, you could just draw something and take a picture of it. You could draw using Inkscape, Photoshop. You could draw it using Affinity Photo or Affinity Design. There's all sorts of software out there you can use, and you can just take your own photos too. So I know, for example, the original commenter there on the YouTube, he said, on my YouTube video, he said, with Unsplash, people are just taking Unsplash photos and they're uploading them onto Redbubble. Well, I'm agreeing with that. That's not right. What I'd suggest is change the photo somehow. Take your own photo. Because if you take your own photo, you're now the copyright holder and you don't need to worry about it. So I've got an example here that I want to show you. This is just a vintage illustration of a cat. And I've just removed the background on it. So it's just like a charcoal or a chalk kind of drawing of a cat. And I just took this, it's a public domain image. And so I could upload this onto Redbubble as is, but so could anyone else. It's the exact same. Now I did remove the background, but let's pretend that I grabbed this as is just from a public domain website. So I run the risk now that someone else might have done this earlier, and thus I could get a copyright strike. So here's my suggestions. Number one, let's add something to this original design. So I've added in text underneath the design. That's part of the design. So now I could upload that onto a t-shirt or a coffee mug, and it doesn't matter that the picture's the exact same. I've got text underneath it. And you can also change what type of text you're using. You could use, flowery font. You could use very old-timey font. You can use distressed font. There's all sorts of different ways you can make it different just by changing the font or changing one word in the description, like that sort of thing. You can also do that. So you can just add something to the photo, right? So add something to the original design and it makes it the same but different enough that you're not going to get a copyright strike. Number two, you can change something to the original design. So maybe I don't want to add anything. I want to keep it the same. Okay, maybe I change the color. And I admit I'm not a big fan of a blue cat, but you get the idea. The other thing is you could just rotate it. You can flip it. You could do, make it something somehow different so it's not the exact same. It increases your chances that you're not going to get some sort of a copyright strike. Number three, you can make your own original artwork. So for example, the reason I selected this picture off of a public domain website is because I wanted to find a cat sleeping. Okay, well I've got some options now. I could just use my own cat picture. So I could just take a picture of my own cat when she's sleeping, and I could say I'll just use that. There's nothing wrong with that. I could run it through a filter and make it look old-timey if I really wanted to. I own the picture. Two, I can trace over the old picture and I can make something else. So I'm using this as an example. I'm calling it a WPAP portrait. And if you're not sure what that is, you can Google it. You can go into YouTube. I've actually got a tutorial where you can do a WPAP portrait. But the idea is you're creating little geometric shapes around like making this picture into a geometric shape. So I've got a unicorn here, but you could make it a cat or a dog. You could make it a charcoal picture. You could trace over it with a light box. If you've got a photograph, you could draw it yourself and say, no, it's mine. It's original picture. I've changed it enough that it's mine. Another one is just, the third option is just to draw your own image. So just take it from scratch and just go, I'm just going to use my artistic talents to sit down with a piece of paper and a pencil, draw a picture of a cat, and now it's my own original picture. It's amazing to me. I see pictures getting busted for copyright, and they're not particularly great pictures. They're old vintage images, and it's like you could just draw that yourself, and it could be similar, but it would be your picture and your illustration. So those are 3 tips using an example here on how you can avoid copyright strike, even if you're using a public domain photo or if you're using something for commercial license. I hope you guys found that helpful. It's a frustrating situation to go down when you think you're playing by the rules and then you get a strike. So I hope you guys found these tips and tricks helpful. And if you like this, of course, hit that like button and, consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching.